It is exactly 35 minutes past the hour. Welcome back to Sunday Live here at Citizen Television. On to our interview of the evening following the vetting of Cabinet Secretary nominees. We have in the studio Professor Karuti Kanyinga from the University of Nairobi. He's an expert in matters of politics. Professor, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Sorry, on X, he actually describes himself as a researcher on politics of development.
Yes,
yeah, but he was a member. He was a member of the Committee of Eminent Persons of the Constitution Review process.
That was way back in 2006.
That's right, way back.
Yes.
So, Prof, you've been watching the vetting throughout the last 4 days.
Yes,
Your thoughts?
One, it's a mix of several things. So you can read political experience, you can read the technical experience, you can also read naivety. But the most important thing is that you tend to see some of them are technically competent, others are bringing political experience. So it's a mixed bag of many things inside there. But the most important thing to note here is that it's a cabinet that many people are calling a government of national unity. We should remember that actually it's government of national unity that have always saved this country from one crisis to another. If we look at the period of Moi, he depended on government of national unity for a long time. If you look at Kibaki, he did the same. And even to a large extent, Uhuru did it. So this is the nature of Kenyan politics. Some people are asking, what's a break with the past? We do not have a break with the past yet. And the reason why we don't have a break with the past is simply because our political elites prioritize self-interest over national interests. And in fact, this has morphed over time. In the 70s, our political elites were actually concerned about community interest, national interest. All of them were thinking about service to the nation. Even in the 80s, every MP you found in this country was concerned about what do I deliver to my community and what is my legacy. And if you look at this town, you'll see Onyonka Estate, this and that estate. Those are people who are concerned about national interest. Over time, and especially after the multi-party democracy, we started seeing self-interest becoming much more dominant and people using ethnic platforms, tribal platforms, to launch their careers at national level, knowing very well that tribal politics is not accountable to your people. Actually, the more ethnic you are, the more tribal you are, the less accountable you are to your own people. And this is a message to Kenyans that we need to pass very well. That if you are mobilizing and voting on ethnic basis, you should know very well that there is no time that politician who is tribal will ever give you any benefits as a community. They are there to serve their own interest. And we have seen from 2022, actually, this is significant change. I would say that if you look at Gen Z protests, it's the genie that came out of the bottle. The politics that we started moving towards issue-based politics of accountability, thinking about Kenya rather than thinking about your tribe, is what we saw in 2022. And because politicians forgot about it, the Gen Z are saying, you forgot what you told us to do. We need to think about Kenya rather than think about individuals.
There's something you've said. You said a government of national unity has always saved Kenya in terms of crisis.
Yes, sir.
You talked about Moi, you talked about Kibaki and Uhuru to a certain extent. Are you essentially saying Raila has always saved Kenya in times of national crisis? Is it not the common factor?
Raila is the common factor. We must say that, whether it's for self-interest or for national interest, is a different matter altogether. But we need to also note very carefully, and I need to be frank with this, Raila is the only Pan-African leader we have on this continent. He may have his own weaknesses, but quite a number of times Raila thinks national. There is no one who has propelled this country to think in governance, accountability more than Raila. He may be having his own failings, but name any other politician who has that track record of saying, let's correct things when they are wrong. Let's correct it. All human beings have got their weaknesses. Yeah. Even you, Jeff.
Well, yeah, okay.
Let's not talk about yours and mine.
Let's not start.
So even worse. I wouldn't talk about it. No,
Prof, you mentioned the Gen Zs.
Yes.
And let's face it, it seems like the more things change in this country, the more they remain the same. Gen Zs made a statement. But then look what turned around. We're getting the same old politicians being recycled as cabinet nominees. Come on.
Yeah, let's also face the facts. Governing is not a walk in the park. Neither is ruling a walk in the park. Gen Zs have actually made a very important pronouncement. They have made accountability a very important feature of our day-to-day lives. But the government is also making mistakes, not realizing that the Gen Zs are saying we want a break with the past. Actually, the president shouldn't have brought back the old elites back into government.
He shouldn't.
He should not.
Yeah.
He shouldn't. But now that he has done it, we have also seen the extent to which it has also played an important role in calming tensions in the country. How long this can obtain is a matter of question. But let's also not remember, let's not forget what the Gen Zs have done. They have forced everyone, including county governments, to start thinking accountability. Now, whether opulence is going to become an end, whether people are going to stop showing off, is a different story or the same. But I can tell you, across the roads everywhere in the country, you cannot see the sirens of county governors and the PSs that used to keep us out of the road every morning, driving on the wrong side of the road. They have been taught good manners. They have been taught good manners. I haven't seen any siren. I haven't seen anyone driving on the wrong side of the road, because that's the bad manners that even Gen Zs were saying, you are doing very wrong. You are eating our money, fueling our own vehicles, and then you are showing me off driving on the wrong side of the road. They have been taught a lesson, and we hope this is going to be maintained. We hope that this demand for accountability is going to spread in all institutions. Gen Zs are in every department of government. And actually, they are the ones who are giving out information about anything wrong taking place. They're even here in Citizen TV. If you do anything wrong, they'll out you.
Well, you talked about a government of national unity. Is that what this is? Because ODM insist they are still the minority in parliament, and they're saying those ones who joined in their individual capacities. We have not formed a coalition.
Let's be honest. Whether we call it government of national unity or any government, it's about self-interest of the political elites who are dominant in particular regions. And remember what I said, our politics in Kenya is driven by elites in any particular community, especially the large ethnic elites, large communities. Elites from those particular communities are the ones who drive the nature of politics. And that's why agreements are kept today, break tomorrow. Alliances formed today, form tomorrow. We are seeing DP Gachagua now thinking about even getting another new alliance for 2027. And even that will not hold for long. UDA, I can guarantee you, will not be in 2027 under the name of UDA. Maybe a different name with different people, because self-interest of elites keep on changing every other time. If you are brought in Raila today, those who are inside will not be very comfortable. You don't expect even Musalia Mudavadi, my friend Musalia Mudavadi, a very good friend, or even Weta, to be very comfortable with this new entrant. And therefore, they must start making calculations. What's next? What's next? And that's what the DP is also doing, because elite pact is what drives our politics. But that's changing, and we have seen it changing from 2022, except that the change has not been that dramatic to say that, wait a minute, all that we want is, you may change as you wish, but we want accountability. We want systems that deliver for all Kenyans. We want an end to nepotism. We want an end to corruption. We want a system that works for you and I the same way it works for Jeff.
Prof, let's come back to the vetting. Is it a given that all these nominees will be approved or and rubber stamped by this parliament? What are your thoughts?
I don't see, so far, I've not seen anyone whom the committee can say we are turning down.
Even Oparanya? Despite what the EACC has?
I saw the defense that already the committee, some members of the committee were putting on him, and I said, this is surprising, because they said the EACC does not have any authority to stop him from going for vetting, and doesn't, so it means that actually the committee will pass him. That's what we are calling a mixed result of the Gen Z protests. So it's 2 steps forward, 1 step backward. Yeah. All the same, there is a step forward.
So is this vetting process essentially a cosmetic exercise?
Largely, it is telling people a lot. It's
finding out what they are worth?
It's telling us that corruption has gone up by 27% in the last 18 months, for instance. Isn't that an important revelation? So it's not Only, it's not only rubber stamping, but there is a lot to learn from this. Because if you, in all your years, you are worth 200 million, then all of a sudden in 18 months you are worth another 150 million. What are you telling me? Those are questions that Kenyans are saying we need to start interrogating now. But I can say I don't think it's going to be business as usual. Even the president himself must be aware that things have changed. The Gen Z are waiting for an opportunity with the IMBC to start recalling MPs. And we have got to see how that will pan out. Because the law is not very clear on why an MP can be recalled. The law is not very clear on, is it a crime that you commit? What does it mean in terms of Chapter 6 of the Constitution, leadership and integrity? But Gen Zs are already ahead of everyone. They are collecting signatures. They are monitoring the situation. That's going to be another point of reference. They may have failed in stopping some of the people from being appointed, but I think they are going to fight it with when IEBC is back, is fully constituted. That's what they were demanding for. So we are likely to see a process to recall MPs, and that one will also bring sanity. Our MPs may start now saying, wait a minute, it's not business as usual. I must be accountable to my constituents because people are watching. I must be deliberate in terms of how I deliver to my constituents. It's the beginning of the process. But let's remember, governance problems were not built within a day. They have taken many years to look bad. And therefore, I think it's a journey we are beginning. And remember, everybody else in Africa says we are doing very well, and everybody watches on us, on what we do, so that they follow. Nigeria is following, Ghana is following, South Africa is following. We used to follow South Africa, now they are all following Kenya in terms of how well we are doing, and they copy it. It's cut and paste that they do.
So there's progress?
There's progress, I would say. It's 2 steps forward, 1 step back.
So we're still moving?
We're still moving.
Gen Zs are the unofficial opposition from the outside looking in. Inside Parliament, is there an opposition?
Let me be honest, whether the government was co-opted or not, whether the opposition was co-opted or not, it is always elite interest. These elites, politicians behave the same. They cut deals with one another. They keep quiet when they are busy eating. Have you ever had opposition to them when they're increasing their salaries?
Never.
Have you ever heard them opposing constituency development fund, even when we know by law it shouldn't be there? So, is there opposition? It depends on what they want when.
But isn't ODM essentially seeking to have its cake and eat it?
Of course.
Because you are represented in government, and you are also the minority insisting on maintaining.
No matter how ODM denies it, they are in government. That's the point.
What happens to Kalonzo?
Kalonzo is one person who misreads Kenya's politics for a very long time. Sometimes he is lucky, sometimes he is very unlucky. Kalonzo is going to be left in the cold again, but he'll start cutting deals because he can't also be in the cold for long. Elite politics demands that he starts looking for a way to get in, or look for an alliance that he may think will help him win a 2027 election, which is going to be very unlikely. So he won't stay. I mean, every elite, when you see them, they're always cutting deals, even in darkness. That's what I must say.
And what does Raila Odinga get out of this arrangement? I know you called him a Pan-Africanist, but what's the end game?
For Raila, the head game is fairly obvious. Get his people, first of all, in government, we must admit that. But most important, I think, he's very keen for the AU job. And it's one job that many people, I think, would love to have him take, because Africa really demands someone who understands where we are coming from in terms of governance. I would love to see Raila Odinga get into AU and refuse to endorse some elections. If African elections in a particular country have gone wrong, I would like to see Raila coming to say, as African Union, we refuse to endorse those elections.
What if, Prof? What if he doesn't get that post?
Raila will be back. It depends on how him and President Ruto play their games. But remember, they are cut from the same cloth. Scratch my back, I scratch your back. What do I need to give you to be silent?
But where does that leave Gen Z? So you said there were some gains that Gen Z have made. Counties are on their toes in terms of accountability. Yeah. But where does this leave them? They are the ones who've died. and given up their lives.
Gen Zs will keep on making everyone to reflect on their back and see, what am I doing wrong? They may not have succeeded radically to say that everything has changed all of a sudden, but I can tell you it's not going to be business as usual even for the government. It doesn't look to be business as usual.
Have they been demoralized, Prof, Gen Zs? Have they been demoralized by what's happened the last week or so?
I think some have been demoralized. The rational ones have not been demoralized because they can say, financial bill was rejected. It's up. It's gone. Some cabinet ministers were dropped. They were off. And we have seen opulence on decline. We have not seen cabinet ministers and PSs driving on the wrong side of the road. Actually, I've not seen any governor's vehicle. The governors were most notorious. I haven't seen any governor in the last 1 month driving on the wrong side of the road and putting everybody out of the road with walkie-talkie. The bad manners with our elites have disappeared. We hope they don't come back.
Sakaja was at Toy Market yesterday.
Don't talk about that.
Okay, sorry.
Because I mean, to be honest, let's be human. You know, he's a father. You know, I saw stones on him, and that's what people really end up doing. They end up saying, if you have refused to take care of us, we have no business with you. That was a very unfortunate incident, and I'm sorry to say that's what happens when there is absence of rule of law. This is not the first time Toy Market has burnt. And that's what is really frustrating people. And remember, these are people who have toiled very hard. All their savings are there. Then all of a sudden, your savings go to waste, right? If you are a leader, you must come there and start thinking about how do I compensate everyone who has suffered this consequence, because it's families that have lost. It's not one individual. Don't look at it as an individual. We are talking about parents. We are talking about people with children going to school, and everything has been burnt down. So if you are a leader, what the first thing to do is to empathize with those people and start demonstrating that the Nairobi City County will look for ways and means of compensating everyone. That's the bottom line. It's humanity. It's about what do you do to empathize with people in such a crisis. These are the poorest of the poor in our society. Their investments have gone to waste with fire that would have been stopped if we under fire working equipment that are spread all over in every roadside. Because that's what happens in the developed world. You put fire engines within a radius of about 5 kilometers or so, sometimes 3 kilometers, right? That's what should have been done. We should have been budgeting for how to address such challenges where the poor people live, because those are most highly congested areas. And these are the people who should be taken care of.
Speaking
more than anything else.
Of what we should have budgeted for. Parliament is in charge of that, right? Appropriations.
County government, of course, because
county governments in this case.
Firefighting is a responsibility of the county government.
Yes, sorry. I'm taking you back. Yeah, I'm taking you back to the National Assembly. Sorry.
I know what you want.
In a roundabout way.
Yes, let's go back to the National Assembly.
So the other day, the courts declared that the Finance Bill 2023 was unconstitutional on the grounds that public participation. Do you think our legislators have gotten the message? And I ask that because even during this vetting exercise, people were invited to submit memoranda, but essentially the MPs were asking their own questions. I heard a few saying, oh, Gen Z, there's a Gen Z who is asking ABCD, but really, what do you make of how they handle the public memoranda?
Let me be honest, that the Senate seems to have learned a lot from this crisis, and that is on record. And they said there is no other way other than going back to the drawing board and start behaving differently. I heard that from Onyonka. I heard that from my good friend Aaron Cheruiyot. I heard that from quite a number of other senators saying it cannot be business as usual. But our National Assembly, in spite of the beatings, I think they are yet to learn about it. I think they have not learned enough lessons from this to do things right. Remember, we are talking about going back to the drawing boards and start thinking about what to do in order to do things right. Delivery of public goods is what the National Assembly is being required to do. And therefore, when I look at even the questions they ask during the National Assembly, during the vetting process, you sit down and ask yourself, wait a minute, why wouldn't you focus on delivery of public goods? Why don't you focus on what can make a difference? That, I think, is going to be a long way. But remember also that, as I said, we are waiting for Gen Zs to move another step forward, demanding their recall.
Speaking of which, today is the 4th of August. In 4 days' time, they've been calling for this thing called Nane Nane.
Yeah.
Is it going to be a game changer? Is it going to be anything happening? Is it going to be business as usual? Riots in the streets, tear gas, the usual stuff?
I don't want to predict, but going by what I'm seeing around is as if the intensity of violence are on decline because of several things. Fatigue among them is something worth noting. Abductions are worth noting. And also those who are rational are saying we have scored a lot already. Can we have space to have things implemented and implemented in a right way before we think about the next course of action? So that is reducing the intensity of demonstrations and protests in general. And of course, remember, we are talking about a leaderless movement. There is no particular leader we can say stands up to be identified with the entire of the country Gen Z protests. They vary from one county to another. But having said that, we may see sporadic areas of protest, again, centered on issues of accountability, protest against probably the cabinet, but I don't think we are likely to see the intensity that we have had in the past. But that's not to say you never know.
You say they have achieved a lot, but as much as, yes, the finance bill 2024 was rejected, you have John Mbadi in his appearance saying there were some good revenue-raising measures contained therein. You've seen the old guard return. You have seen the president, even after sacking in nearly his entire cabinet, return half of them.
That's what I said is wrong. I mean, we should have, the president should have read the public mood. And the public mood was break with the past. They didn't want anyone from the old cabinet to be returned. And that's the people wanted a lean, Gen Zs wanted even a lean government of less ministries than what was there. So they didn't get that. But at least they have got some new cabinet ministers. The cabinet was initially dissolved. Really, do you see government behaving like that? But one would wonder what the president was reading from, right? But it's not, even if we say that, I don't think it's going to be business as usual even for him.
Prof,
I don't think it's going to be business as usual, even for him, in terms of how he moves forward.
Yeah.
He may be using the old lenses of saying, I've brought in people to help me calm the country. But will that bring down corruption? He has got to think about corruption. He has got to think about government ministries that deliver to everyone. He must look for ways of reducing corruption. He must look for ways of aiding tribalism in recruitment of young people. Because young people are saying it's only the Kalenjin and Kikuyus who are being recruited for any job that is available. When will jobs be available for Mijikenda, for Turkana, for Boran, as they are available for Kalenjin and Kikuyu? That's where we must start saying there is need to pay attention to issues of governance raised in recent times. We are a country, and we can say what is good for a Kikuyu is not necessarily good for Kenya, but what is good for Kenya is good for everyone, whether irrespective of their tribe. Yeah. That's the message our political elites don't get. What is good for a Kisi is not necessarily good for Kenya, but what is good for Kenya is good even for a Kisi, wherever he is.
Are you saying we're not quite out of the woods just yet, Prof?
We are not yet, unless we start paying attention to these priorities of governance. Inclusive government is one step forward, but make systems work for everyone. Make systems work for everyone, reduce corruption, make service delivery a core issue, so that when I go to a health service, I don't have to bribe a doctor to be treated. I don't have to bribe a nurse in Kenyatta National Hospital to have a surgical bed hidden so that I can have surgery the next day. I don't have to bribe a doctor so that I can get chemotherapy drugs, right? We need availability of drugs for everyone, not through corruption. And that's, systems are not working. Systems are not working. In the public health sector, for instance. In education, they're not working. We have seen what happens after end of every exams, how people run to Alliance High School, Mangu High School. Everybody wants to go to those schools. But shouldn't we not make systems work so that irrespective of where you are, you have got better access to education? Why should we have bursaries again spread everywhere? MCA has a bursary, governor has a bursary, CDF has a bursary, ministry has everyone has a bursary. Why not put all that money into a kitty, into the Ministry of Education, into Ministry of Education, and make education free and accessible to everyone? Because that bursary that you are giving is not accessible to everyone. It's accessed sometimes through nepotism. It's accessed through corruption. So it's not serving the purpose. And people, Gen Zs are saying, let all systems work for everyone.
Okay. So the other day I hosted a panel of Gen Zs, and a young man, Kasmuel Makore, stated that they cannot go to the dialogue table when they're still showing up on the autopsy table. There is a lack of confidence, trust. Even the PS Foreign Affairs stated that right here, that there's a lack of trust in the president. And that is informed by, last year we had protests, lives were lost. The response the IG then gave, the former IG, was bodies were being hired. There was no accountability. There were journalists who were injured. The same was repeated this time round with the protests. The numbers differ depending on who you ask, but lives, both sides agree, lives were lost. And there has still not yet been accountability.
Let me begin by saying, not only lack of accountability, but the government did not even show empathy. The government did not sympathize even with the families of the deceased. The government did not, and that's what really caused us to start asking what happened to our humanity. That's the first point of reference, saying poorly. That's the first thing. The police involved should, by now we should be talking about police being prosecuted in order to show that there is willingness to commit to addressing these particular crimes, because those are serious crimes of killing young people because of protesting. So there is a lot. That's not the only form of accountability we should be talking about. We should be talking about police being held to account and showing a commitment to that. And the trust is not gained by what you say. Trust is actually action-based. Trust is based on the extent to which people are satisfied with what they see you doing. So one can actually agree with Gen Zs that there is no trust, because I don't trust that you'll do ABCD because your actions so far have not demonstrated a commitment and a willingness to do so. And therefore the government has got to do a lot in order to satisfy the Gen Z and everyone else that trust can be regained and confidence can be regained. Remember, to build trust, it takes a long time, but to destroy it takes a very short period of time, and that's what has happened. If I were the government, I would demonstrate by actions, various actions, in a very systematic and repeated manner, that I'm committed to show accountability. I'm committed to show empathy with the families of these young kids, and I'm committed to prosecute those involved. Absolutely. That's the bottom line.
Absolutely. Professor Karuti Kanyinga would like to talk some more, but right now we gotta take a break. Thank you so much for your time. We'll keep talking and keep doing what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for taking the time to share your insights.
Thank you very much.
That's Professor Karuti Kanyinga from the University of Nairobi. We're going to take a break right now. Come back. We still have plenty more ahead. Keep tweeting at Krenega Jeff.
At O Burrows, at Citizen TV Kenya. Professor, you're next. Your handle?
Karuti KK.
Karuti KK.
Yes, Karuti KK.
Karuti at Karuti KK.
Yes.
Hashtag is Sunday Live. Sunday Live takes a break. We'll be back.
Yes.
In the meantime, coming up, KKK.